And I have to present our next lecturer, Anders Lindseth. You already are familiar with him because he was our chairman during the first half. And as I said, I know Anders for many, many years, and he has been involved in this early intervention thing and in open dialogue for many years. And he has been present in most of these annual meetings, giving some very interesting insights, reflections, and actually he was always giving a very deep psychological context for our discussions. So, dear Anders, it's always a pleasure to listen to you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, the title of my lecture is Experiences of Psychosis as Life Crisis, Ethical and Philosophical Considerations. And what I want to emphasize is very much the importance of being met, or being met by other people, or being recognized by other people in life crisis. When I say met or recognized, I could very well also say to be accompanied, because that is the concept that Alberto brought in, accompanied self-rehabilitation as a self-recovery, as a program that Alberto and colleagues of his were able to build up, so to speak, outside the main system in Colombia, in this little city of Sopo. So I will start shortly with this concept of crisis, because I think today we are living in a time where we don't want crisis. We think that crises are very dangerous, so we are trying to avoid crisis. But I think we should rather think, as the old Greeks already did, that we need to learn from crisis. And if you try to avoid crisis, we probably would also try to avoid all changes in life. But life is changing. As Alberto was talking about this time with the COVID situation, and there are also many other reasons why we all the time need to redesign lifestyle. So if we want to avoid crisis, we probably also avoid redesigning lifestyle. So as if we could live exactly in the same way all the time. But we are going through periods of life. We have education, we have childhood education, then we marry and we get children and we make career and all that. And that is also all the time about having to redesign lifestyle, I could say. And Alberto mentioned this guy who left his family and his work and went to the street. I will come back to that. But first, about this concept of crisis. And now I'll see if it functions here with sharing screen. Yeah. There it is, yeah. There. I have to say, yeah, that's my fantastic drawing. That's my beautiful drawing. This is also, this drawing is meant to illustrate a very old idea that I personally trace back to the philosopher Plato, because Plato, as at his time, Greek philosophers, Greek authors, poets were very occupied with is that life is a risky walk on the life's road, or the life's path, or the life's way. And the Greek word for road or path or way is hodos. So we are all on a hodos. And we may for some time think that this is unproblematic. It's working well, and we live our life on this path of life, and we and tomorrow will be like yesterday. So, but then we sooner or later have to realize that there are dangers on this hodos, on this way of life. And that is, I think, an experience to everyone. This is not about mental illness or something. Of course, that is a special way of being in danger. But we all experience the risks of life. And when we come to that point where we realize, oh, if I go on as I have, without taking seriously that I have to redesign life to be able to lead my own life. If you don't take that seriously, it may go very well. So that's way down. That is where we come into trouble. So, but that is not only a danger, that is also a chance. When we realize that, it is a chance to change the direction of life, to choose a better road. The Greek philosophers, and also in Christianity, this better road has often been called the narrow road, as most people walked on the broad road that did not end in a good. That did not lead to happiness and to a good life. So to achieve happiness and a good life, we have to learn from this crisis. So the Greek word for crisis, that is the same word, krisis. And krisis has this double meaning of chance and risk, chance and danger. So if you take that seriously, we may learn to discern, to distinguish between good and bad, beauty and ugliness, truth and falsity in life. And this distinguishing, discerning, the Greek word for that is krinein. So you see, krisis, krinein are words close to each other. They have the same beginning, kri, and critique. Critique is coming from the same word. So that is important in life, that to take crisis in life seriously, and not to try to avoid crisis, but to try to learn from crisis. And that was very much an idea in the philosophy of Plato, because Plato, the great first philosopher of the European tradition, very important for everything we think today also. Plato had the idea that it should be possible to look closer to this hodos, and to see which crisis we might come into. And it should be possible to communicate about hodos in a kind of a meta-hodos, also a meta-hodos, a way that we could walk in dialogue, a way we could walk in conversation. The idea of the difference between conversation and dialogue, I hope to also come into that soon. But no, also Plato had the idea we could look closer to the way of life and to the possibilities of coming into crisis in a conversation. And that would be then a metahodos, a way we walk in conversation where we look at the way of life, also a metahodos. And that then the A in meta falls out of language and you get the word methodos. And that was the way the concept of method came into our tradition of thinking. We don't know that anymore, but today we talk about methods and methods and methods everywhere, but that comes from the philosophy of Plato. When we talk about crisis, as I said, so we have today the feeling we should avoid crisis. But that I'm quite sure is a big mistake. So because we can't avoid crisis. Because to avoid crisis, we would have not to change anything, and then we would really come into crisis, because life is a process of changing, and we have to be open for that and to follow this process of changing in life, coming into different life situations. So a crisis is not necessarily a terribly big crisis that we would like to avoid. There are a lot of small crises in life. I call them discrepancies. As a discrepancy between what we expect and what then becomes the case. We live and expect things, and we come into a situation, and then it comes out differently. So then there is a discrepancy between what we expected and what we then have to experience. And so life is an experience of discrepancies. And then next point and my next figure is that the importance of being met in these crises, to be heard, to be recognized, to be accompanied. So I really love that the term in the project that Alberto has been creating in Colombia, accompanied self-rehabilitation. Because this importance of being recognized, being met, is absolutely necessary in the crisis of life, and that is necessary to learn the necessary lessons from these crises, from these experiences of discrepancy. So then, how are we met in crisis? So now I have to share again. Share now. Okay. Now share screen. There comes it. So my next my next piece of art here. So there it comes. Well, this is a figure I have used several times, and if you have heard me lecture before, you may have heard me talk about this, but I think I can very well go into it again and again, many times. It is also, what is the idea of this figure, is to try to find out what does it mean to be met in a life situation. And I think, well, we have to express ourselves all the time. So that is, we are expressing ourselves in words, but also in actions, in doing. And that is our attempt to try to lead our lives. We express ourselves. And by doing that, we need, so to speak, the reinforcement of those we meet on our path of life. And how are we accompanied, or how are we reinforced in our expression? Well, I think what is very important is that we meet someone that are open for the expression. And that means that we meet someone who is willing to let our expression of life make an impression on them. So that's what you say. That's what you think. Oh, that's what you are doing. And that is listening. That is taking the expression seriously. And I used to say, when that happens, a space of attention is opened up where we feel invited to come in with our expression. If our expression makes an impression on someone, this impression is doing something, not actively, but it is doing something in an invitational way. We feel invited to come out to express ourselves. And because we have the feeling we are heard, we are reinforced, we are accompanied through this attention. And then we are also able to listen to ourselves. All of a sudden, what we express becomes impossible for ourselves to take seriously. When we are taken seriously by a listener, we are in the position to take our own expression seriously. And then, yeah, exactly. How much time do I have? I still have time. Very good, very good. So, so then, what then very often happens in the systems, and not at least in the helping systems, when we meet a professional helper, and that might be a physician, it might be a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, yeah, anyone, and a social worker, all kinds of a teacher sometimes also, a professional helper. This space of attention is many times then not opened up. We don't feel invited into a space of attention where we might hear ourselves anew and take our own expression seriously because the listener takes it seriously. And why does that happen when we meet professional helpers? Well, it has to do with the position of the helper, that the helper wants to help us, not just accompany, not just to listen, but the professional helper has this idea, well, I have been studying for many years, I have a knowledge, I have a pre-knowledge that I can use now in this situation. And I should use it in such a way that I'm helpful. So what the professional helper then does, he don't find it enough to just be bodily or mentally open for the expression and letting it make an impression. But the professional helper have the idea, I should get some information out of the expression to know how to help. So then, by this professional helper, the expression is transformed into information. And that is something rather dramatic, because by that, our expression is taken away from us as our own expression and made to something that should help the helper. Because the professional helper who has studied and has theories in mind need this information, and has also the possibility to make something out of it. And by doing that, the professional helper gets an idea, how could I help? Diagnosing, identifying a problem, seeing possibilities of social life. And then the professional helper is not sharing his or her impression in the dialogue, but the professional helper is intervening. That's an intervention. And then as a person in need for help, yeah, you are acted on. So you have a professional helper who has made you an object for helping, and then you are, so your ability to express yourself is, so to speak, taken away, and this space of attention is collapsing, and you don't get the feeling of being heard or being invited in somewhere. And you have to say, okay, I hope that this knowledgeable helper can help me. I can't do anything else than just probably it will help me somehow. And this concept is okay if I have broken a leg. Then it is relatively okay, because then I can bring my leg to the physician who can do something with that. And I hope he will do a good work, and my leg will grow together, and I get healed. But in many other situations, it is this figure of helping is very problematic. If my problem in life is a life crisis, then it is about my walk on the path of life, and then I have a history, and I have a wish to go on in life, and then I have to be taken seriously on my experiences on this path of life, to be able to take the next step, to be reinforced, to go on with my life, to take the lead of my life. And if then I am met with the diagnosis, schizophrenia or bipolarity, or I am then labeled in such a way that I cannot myself free myself from that, because I am not the expert who can say, no, that is, I don't agree with that. I don't need that labeling, that diagnosis. I will live my life. No, I came into a system where I am labeled. I am put in certain boxes, and you can't draw yourself out of these boxes. You need another expert who can come and say, no, don't bother. You are not in these boxes. So then you might contact Jaakko Seikula, for instance. So that is a figure that I have been drawing to say something about how we are hindered by professional helpers. And professional helpers are, of course, they have a good will. They are not against us. They want to help, but this helping is sometimes a hindrance for our ability to live our lives, because it is not an accompaniment. It is a taking over control. It is a person who thinks, I know the best, I am an expert, I take over control. Maybe the person says, I don't want to take over control, but I have to do it because I have this knowledge, I'm this expert. So that is problematic then, and we all realize that. So when we come into that situation, I think we as usual normal people, when we meet such a Besserwisser, that's the German word for it, knowing better people, we don't like it. And why should people in severe crisis, in psychotic crisis, should they like it? More probably they need to be met and accompanied even more than we as normal people need. So it is also another thing that very often happens in life that may not open this space of attention, and that is the everyday discourse, I would say, the everyday dialogue, where we meet a friend, a family member, and all that have certain expectations to us. And then we are in a situation where we try to fit into these expectations very often. We utter opinions. We have judgments of situations. We have evaluations of what's happening, etc., etc. And we express that, and the friend, the family member, the colleague, not the professional helper, but the usual people that we meet, they have certain expectations, and then they react back on us. And that sometimes, of course, they may be listening also. We may feel that we have a good talk, but not always. Also, sometimes we are so restricted by these expectations that we are not really being enabled of walking our own way in life. So that is the idea of dialogue that I bring from this. That you could say when we express ourselves to people we know in life and have to fit ourselves into expectations of these people, of the situations we are going to. That is very much, I have called it discourse. You could say everyday conversation. That is everyday conversation. That is not dialogue in such a way that we hope to have dialogues in open dialogue settings. And why not? Yeah, because to be an open dialogue, we have to this space of attention has to be opened, where we feel invited in, and where we can trust that we can express ourselves, because there is an interest, there is a willingness to be moved by our expression, to get an impression of it, to be touched by it, and then we trust to we feel invited to come out, and the listener then after a while feel invited to impress his or her impression of our expression. And then one expression meets the other expression, and we can realize this is about something. That here is a matter, here is a life matter at stake. Here is an issue. It is about something important in life that we can share. So then we are accompanied. And because if it is real dialogue, as Alberto said, this accompanying is not one-sided. It is somehow mutual, because the listener who risk to be moved by an expression is not just this expert, this guy achieving the important thing. You achieve an important thing when you listen, absolutely. But you are also moved, and you receive something from that. So what is at stake in this dialogue is not just the life of the other; it is your own life. It's also at stake. So I think mutual recovery is a concept for expressing this. Alberto mentioned it was an example that I told Alberto a week ago, I think, as we had as we had a Zoom meeting to prepare for this. And it was something that I remembered. It was something happening in a prison in Norway, in Trondheim, in Norway. Because there was a prison in Norway where they were practicing reflecting processes that they had learned from Tom Andersen. So they, it was very, and I was invited to take part in such a process. So you had the prisoners, and you had the guards in the prison, and you had journalists and interested people around, and as reflecting teams, and a process of reflection did take place. But the story that I told Alberto about was something happening in the pause in this, also in a break of this reflecting process. Then a prisoner came to me. I think he had heard me say something that moved him to come to me, and he told, I was a successful advertising in an advertising agency. I learned a lot of money. I had a family. I was living in an expensive house. And I have a good car. I have a sailing boat. And but I had the feeling I'm not living. I am like a robot. I do the same thing all the time. I am living up to the expectations, to the expectation. No. You understand what I mean. So what is expected from me? And I had the feeling I can't breathe. I don't find my own voice in this. I'm good at what I'm doing, but I'm not behind it. It is not me who's acting. So one day he left everything, family, work, everything, and went to the street, and became walking on the, so living on the street. It was a very drastic thing to do, and to be able to live that way, he was also committing some crimes, stealing something or something, and that was the reason why he came into prison. It was nothing very seriously, so he was not very long in prison. But he said to me that this decision was the best thing I have done, because then I had, he didn't say that is Alberto's words, but he could have said, then I had to redesign my lifestyle, to be able to take the lead in life, to be able to be able to express myself, to be able to tell my story. And I couldn't do that before. But this radical break with my life situation made that I felt, oh no, I have to decide. No, I have to. And then I asked him, yeah, but when you now in a couple of weeks are a free man again, and not in prison anymore, are you going back to the street? And then he said, no, I don't think so. I will go back to my work as an advertising, as in this advertising agency, and I will take up but then I do it in a different way. Then I have the feeling I am not, I am very curious how that will be. I'm not absolutely certain it will be only good, but I have to do it. I can't go back to the street. So I think this way of thinking, because I bring that back away. Stop sharing. Yeah, so Besserwisser, in German, Besserwisser. Know it all, I read there. No, someone, know it all person. Yeah, so what I had tried is to make it plausible that if we, if we think that mental problems are illnesses, or even a worse word, diseases. We come into the same logic as if we have broken a leg. We go to hospital to get the leg healed. We go to a psychiatric institution to be fixed. But by doing that, we realize a discrepancy. Because if we expect to be fixed, do we then realize that we are fixed? No, very seldom. And if it is not because we are fixed, but because we have in us an ability to recover. And that has to be strong to be able to recover. And of course, that may happen through time. We came into a psychotic crisis, and then we came to an institution, and we had time, and we had, and then we could recover. But very often we are hindered from recovering because someone takes too much the lead in our life. We are not accompanied in our own life. We are not heard. We are not taken seriously. As the guy said who called Jakob, no one listened to me. No one take me seriously. And then then we realize, oh my goodness, what are we doing? Trying to help people in severe crisis. Because then we realize, okay, this concept of disease was probably very unfortunate. It is not a disease that I have got from somewhere. It is a life crisis. It is a consequence of experiences we have done, of choices we have taken, and not at least it is a consequence of a lack of dialogue, of a lack of having the opportunity to be heard, to be recognized, to be taken seriously, and then the problems we have are life crises, and such life crises might, of course, be sometimes very frightening. If you have a family background with frightening situations in one way or the other, we become anxious. We are, and that we then choose the strategy. What did Jakob say? The survival strategy of psychosis, of hearing something, seeing something that other cannot realize. And I remember in Norway there is a very interesting person who she is now, I don't know if her doctoral work is finished, but she did take a psychology exam, and is a psychologist, and the last time I heard from her, she had a PhD project going on, and she is saying about herself, I'm the only person who is healed from schizophrenia. So she got this diagnosis, and she regards herself healed from that. And her name is Arnhild Lauveng. I'm sure Norwegians know the name, Arnhild Lauveng. I heard a lecture. I was very interested. And she had, of course, a history that it was not strange that she hallucinated and so on. And she said what to do. Also, the thing her hallucinations was she did see wolves dangerous wolves. And she said, how was she met by that? She said, yeah, well, the most people did say to her, no, there are no wolves. You are hallucinating, no wolves. And then she met a guy who was very understanding and said, I believe you that you see wolves. And one guy did throw a chair on the wolf, but that was very strange for Arnhild Løveng, because the wolf she saw was not there on the same place as the guy did throw the chair. So what Arnhild Løveng said is that if you hallucinate, you should neither be corrected, not be believed, as if you were talking about facts. You should be taken seriously in your story. Also, the listener have to understand your story. That this story is somehow strange. Everyone who has hallucinated, she said, knows that somewhere. But the story is so important. It is so important to express it. So, and she said for herself, she always knew that the wolves that it was something strange with these wolves, because she never came on the idea to call the state office responsible for wild animals. so it was very special wolves. And she said the last time she saw a wolf, she was on this bicycle on the way to the university to take part in the seminar. And then she saw a wolf, and she said, "Oh, what a terrible, what a bad-looking wolf!" And she said to herself, "It's not strange that I see a wolf and I go to a seminar in the university. That is somehow to throw yourself to the wolves." So I think we don't need to be corrected. We don't need to be believed in everything, but to be accompanied, to be listened to be heard, to be taken seriously in our stories. And as we in the discussion before the break in the first part of this today, we have also realized that this being taken seriously sometimes is not so easy. It may be frightening, it may be violent ideas being expressed, and much anxiety. And so to have a team then who can meet it, who trust each other and are open and able to activate family members and to get the process that is not leaded by anxiety, but by trust, by openness to listen. I think that is what is needed in psychiatry. And as Jaakko so clearly said before the break, this idea of mental illness as a brain disease creates anxiety. So, you mistrust. Oh, he is so ill, she is so ill. I don't know what might happen. Yeah, that was somehow, as I said, I think I have said mainly what Jaakko also said, but in a different language, a language from philosophy and not from psychiatry. So I so far say thank you and looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Anders. And I know that you and Alberto had the same song, yes?
Well, say it again. You know that?
I know that you are and Alberto had the same song together.
Yeah, I have. I think we've been able to. It was clear that I was singing basically the same song.
So the floor is open for the questions, discussions, comments, whatever. Please feel free to comment. I think it's quite easy just to turn on your microphone and video. I am a bit afraid that there are no other people. I see Karila still present here. Karila, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hello. I do remember the very beginning of this day conference and the discussions about human rights, about recovery process, and many problems that we experience in this field. Listening to all these stories and especially listening to Anders and Alberto, maybe you got some idea or something that can be used in Lithuania in our common practice?
Yeah, thank you. Finally, I got possibility to launch my video. Human rights framework is, as I said, it's not as far away as we usually think. It's very daily based practice usually. Usually we have to find the ways, for example, as an alternative to coercive practices. Because United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, right? And it's Article 12 and 15, actually, it says that coercive practices are practices in mental health and in general are not applicable, and that we have to find another ways to help people. And it's a huge area to be opened, to be started, let's say, in our country and many others, you know, when such biological practices could find its place. Because involuntary treatment and involuntary hospitalization and all the coercive like isolation or coercive treatment in clinical perspective, it can reduce the symptoms, right? And we can have a good clinical investigation on that, and we can support that. But in perspective and lifetime perspective, in perspective of personal recovery, right, it breaks actually alliance, therapeutic alliance. So all these biological practices, and especially, you know, giving the time, giving the dialogue, giving the proper circumstances and proper approaches, they have to find the place. But it's very difficult to say how to do that and who should do that. Should it begin from the grassroots and then later on to mainstream somehow? Should it begin from the top, right, as a programs to implement it? Both ways have their pros and cons, and it's not as easy. But I believe that open dialogue could contribute to that practices very, very much, as in the world it does.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. Somebody else would like to comment something?
I would like to say something to Karili. Is that the way? It was a question I became as I listened to your lecture earlier today, where you talked about the protection of human rights. And you said, yeah, if there is no violence, it is no big problem. And then I thought, well, but if you are not listened to, if you are not accompanied, if you meet a person who thinks he or she knows better, isn't that violence? Isn't that a violence of violating human rights? Shouldn't it be a human right to lead your own life? And also, if you need accompaniment, because we all need that from time to time. We are, few of us are so sovereign that we don't need accompaniment in situations.
Yes, I would like to just counter comment that that's usually what's understood. Yeah, that if somebody is not beaten, let's say, I don't know, doesn't get bruises, that understand that everything is right with human rights. But exactly what you elaborate, and that we talk, that the practices, the human rights based practices, they are so you know, they go so far, and that systems and professionals not always understand that, you know, abuse or violence or mistreatment, I would say, of people who are in need of support in that place. That's exactly what I agree with you, that and actually the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities actually captures all that. I mean, it's not about just reducing some like belts, I don't know. it's broad, and it's humanistic, and it's in line with what you said. Yeah.
Some more reflections. Yesterday, I was very worried about the pauses and silence, because when you have silence in auditorium, you can just look into the faces and try to guess, are people with us or are they somewhere far, far away? Now, when I deal with a big screen and virtual people in it, it's quite difficult to guess, are we all still together? Oh, I see some movements, yeah. Some people are together, so good to know. Thank you for responding. So those who are with us, some insights, some reflections, some ideas. How do you feel? What you found out to be interesting?
I can share one idea. It's strange, but I thought about, you know, if you look at COVID, this whole pandemic thing, and we speak like this, then we had and lived normal life, and now we end the crisis globally. But I made the conclusion it's very good opportunity not to go back to our normal life, but to make it better, to use this house to evolve a little bit. I don't know just how at the moment, but to use this energy maybe of anger and disappointment and to create something new, but not to stick for that, to bring back what it was, but to make it a little bit different when you come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I comment on that, Ramune?
Yes, of course. I would be glad.
Thank you very much for that comment, Egle. I think that's exactly the point we both wanted to make with Anders. By the way, usually things don't go backwards, but in this case, they won't probably go backwards. And I think in a sense, it's good that they don't go backwards. We've learned a lot. People have time to rethink themselves, rethink their relationships, their lifestyles, as I have mentioned, their priorities in life. I see all over our program people redefining their priorities for the rest of their life. The values have maybe I wouldn't say they have changed, but people have affirmed on themselves on certain values and abandoned others, and they are open to new things. And you see, Egle, the other fascinating good thing in between the pain, as I always mention, is that we have a much clearer sense of community and of the interconnectedness with us, with all of us. No, we know that we cannot handle this virus if we don't handle them all together. So that applies not only to the virus, no, that's true for everything. Even as far as nature is concerned, the relationship of people with air, Egle, has changed. We've valued much more the importance of air, of freshness of air, right? We didn't know that. We kind of gave for granted. So that's exactly the point you're mentioning. And that's how, amongst lots of suffering, if we are well accompanied, I would say, no, there are ways in which we can get the best out of this. And I would certainly say the idea is not to go backwards. The thing is moving forward, and it's a kind of a new world, a new environment. And many of the changes, if you look at it, Egle, many of the changes are in the direction that we were moving towards. The world was certainly moving towards virtuality. No, the virtual world was coming, the digital world was coming. So we had to move a bit faster, probably. No, but it is in the right direction. The world was moving and being conscious of the ecology of people speculate why this virus, something happened, something we're not handling okay. So yes, that's the main message we want to send, that this suffering has been for something good also, but if we are able to realize that and do that in group. Thank you for that comment, Egle.
I want to say hello to my friend Werner, who I see the face of.
Hi, Anders. It's been very soothing to listen to you.
What did you say?
It's been very soothing to listen to you. Yes, it's like coming home to this mental space we share.
Nice to hear.
Discussion. So, something more to say?
Maybe I'm a little uncertain if I should say this, but I would just like to have a short comment on this this COVID crisis, Corona crisis, because to me, it is not so much about the virus, but it is about an illusion that we as modern people have, that science can bring complete health. I probably should say much more about that, but I stopped that because it's such a difficult topic to go into. So for me, it is what I learned from that is the need of trusting nature. Someone would say that is stupid, but to me that is what I learned from the crisis.
Okay, if today everything is already said, so probably we can end this day. And thank you very much for our lecturers. Thank you very much for the listeners. Thank you for the chairperson very much. So tomorrow we will be able to meet at 1 o'clock Central Europe time. Sorry, Alberto, I know it will be extremely early morning in Colombia. But anyhow, we start at 1 o'clock Central Europe time. And tomorrow we are going to have some discussions on research. We also have information about presentation of one book. And also we have to discuss our future, what we are going to do in future, how we are going to do that. So it's quite an interesting day. So good luck to all of us.
And thank you, Ramona, for today, for organizing so nice day, having so nice speakers, and good luck. Have a nice evening today.
Yeah.
And I wish you a good day tomorrow. I'm sorry I can't participate because I'm flying tomorrow from northern Norway to Oslo. So, but next year I hope to be on the spot.
Next year, Spain.
Thank you, Ramona. Thank you very much, Ramona. It's not early. It's late night for me. It's not going to be early. So
Okay.
thank you very much, Ramona.
Okay. So see you all. See most of you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.